Welcome to Resilience Plus Rise, the podcast, where resilience is not just a concept, but a lived experience. I'm your host, Thomas Scaria, a resilience coach, a ultra marathoner, and a relentless believer in the human spirit's ability to rise. This podcast is a companion to my book, Resilience Plus Rise 26.2 Transformative Miles to Unleash Your Marathon of Life Mindset. Each episode is a raw, unfiltered dive into the story of those who have faced life's hardest battles and emerged stronger. I just said a word, a part of a statement that says a relentless believer in the human spirit's ability to rise. Today's guest abides by those same critical words. She believes. She believes in being relentless. It's an honor getting back Dalton back into Resilience Plus Rise. For her, there have been a lot of struggles, a lot of challenges. When you look at her, maybe directly on the face value, everything seems to be good. But one of the elements that has worked out so beautifully when when I read about her is that what she totally believes is that a dream is just a noun until you turn it into a verb. You have to move, you have to act, you have to focus fiercely and unapologetically on building the life that you desire. So, with this, Zoe, welcome back to Resilience Plus Rise, the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be back.
Fantastic. So, Zoe, for the people who have not, maybe who have missed our episode a year back, or people who don't know much about you, there have been a lot of learnings, I would put it as, or challenges, as I would put it as, when you see how life has transpired with you. If you could just go shortly on what exactly happened. And again, guys, I would be putting out Zoe's information down in our post when it's there, and do have a look onto it. So, Zoe, what's been happening, or what's been the trajectories?
Well, in the past year, I was 49. I was getting, yeah, I turned 50 well, now it's April. So in February, I turned
Mhm.
50. And when I was 49, I decided that I wanted my next chapter to be fulfilling. And I didn't know what that meant. I didn't have a definition for it. And I've always trusted my journey for years, ever since I was in high school. Everything is how it should be and it unfolds how it should be. I believe that there's a plan made out for you by the universe, God, whoever, the divine, whatever you call, and you just have to navigate it. You're given the signs and you have the right and the free will to choose. So I said, all right, I'm just going to let this play out as it should. And so actually, it was a year ago this month, I received a phone call from someone, and you know him well. His name is Alan. And he texted me and he said, I need your help with something. And I went, okay. And he's one of my people. So when it's my people, I will always show up, and it's just a matter of, okay, am I bringing cupcakes or am I bringing ammo? Like, what am I doing here? So
Okay.
I would do anything for him. So he said, I am the president of a nonprofit and I need your help. And I said, okay.
Okay.
So he got me connected to the founder. Her name is Gina. And I ended up talking with her for about 6 hours. In the first phone call, we connected right away, and it was wonderful. We both, have similar belief systems. She founded this nonprofit called Gates to Healing, and the mission is to provide equine-assisted therapy for military personnel, veterans, first responders, and their families who carry the silent wounds from their jobs. So, and as you know me, I wear red every Friday for Remember Everyone Deployed. My son is considering going into the Air Force. Veterans, I trained at the Naval Academy from the time I was 12 through college for their club swim team. So the military and veterans are hold a very special place in my heart. So I agreed and I was like, well, I guess this is going to be my next chapter. So um, I currently ride horses and I've experienced the power and the I don't know how to say that. They're just magical. And it sounds a little hooey, but they truly are magical. So I fell in love with horseback riding years ago and have pursued it and learned a lot about myself and learned a lot about horses. And so this opportunity comes up, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to get my EGALA certification and so on. And so, I agreed to do their social media because I love doing that. And as time has gone by, the organization hit a pivot point where we needed to formalize things. We needed to really start providing services because the need is so great. So this was in the fall, and it was in a place where I'm going to just write it on out. My younger son is a senior in high school, and I don't know what he's going to do. I still don't know what he's going to do, and that's perfectly fine. Um,
Yeah, Zoe, sorry. Now over here, just before you can continue with that
mhm,
particular, there were two elements which I wanted to pick up on. One
mhm,
was universe has a plan, and
mhm.
you're riding through it. So I always one of my statements I use in my podcast time and again is that you got a life. You can either exist through it or you can live it.
Yeah.
Knowing you, yes, there is a plan, but I don't think so. You were just existing through it.
No, I wasn't.
Okay, that was one particular element. And the second thing is this project is about healing. So the two
Mhm,
questions which come up, that's when you can go back to the people
mhm.
who are not aware about it, is that why is healing important to you? Whether they are in
Oh,
military or they are in other facets of their life. That's number one. And if you could just mention is that the even though you believed life has a purpose or a plan, but being relentless on from same elements of a equine or a horse is that you
mhm,
got to take on the reins rather than just allowing
mhm.
the horse to ride you on where you want to go.
Correct.
So what's what would you have to say on that specifically about the healing and life itself? What has got you in this particular space?
So I look back, I did a lot of inner work, a lot of inner work. After my divorce, I was in a very abusive relationship. It was emotionally abusive. I was married, and the he became physically abusive, and I had to leave the marriage in order to save myself. I was going to end up being a statistic, and I knew that. And I had two very young boys. They were 18 months old and 3 at the time. They're now 20 and 17. And I knew that I needed to escape the marriage so that my kids could have a mother. So about 2 years, yeah, about 2 years after the divorce, I was dragged to custody 3 times in 2 years. And during that time, I really took a look at myself. There was a moment where I sent an email to now my late ex-husband, and that's a story within itself. I sent an email to him, and it sent me going to the bathroom to get sick because it just didn't make me feel good. And at that moment, I was like, I can't keep doing this to myself. I am participating in this, and this is like injecting poison in my veins.
Hmm.
I I just couldn't carry it anymore. So I immediately dropped it. I went on this intensely spiritual journey. And in that journey, I learned a lot about myself. I went into my timelines and healed my wounds. I have wonderful parents. They're still, with us today, and I'm very grateful. But I had to go back into my timelines and look at my patterns of behavior and where they came from. And I did that not just to better myself and to heal, but I wanted to be the best version of myself for my sons. My sons needed that. I needed that and they needed that because I didn't want them to have a skewed perspective on what love is or what love isn't and what a woman's role and who she is and a mother. Like I wanted them to have a healthy mother.
Mhm.
And so that was what I set out to do. And it was ugly, ugly work, but it was so worth it. And so when they came to me in the late summer of 2019, disclosing the abuse that they had endured, um, I immediately got them into counseling. I got them additional trauma counselors so that and the trauma counseling was I put myself back into counseling so that I could show up and be okay alongside of them because the TFCBT counseling, the trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy, involved the healthy caregiver. And so there were times I had to sit next to them while they recounted what happened to them, and I had to be okay listening to that. And it ripped open a lot of wounds. And that's why I put myself back in counseling. But had I not done the work on my own to that point, I would have never been able to show up for them and be there for them and be there in the non therapeutic hours to help them understand and to help them through their triggers and to move through them instead of, tiptoe around them. I didn't, there's a quote out there that says, it's our job to raise healthy men, or it's easier to raise healthy men than it is to something about broken, like deal with broken men. And it was my duty as a mother after all I've learned about myself and just loving them so much. I wanted to help them heal themselves. It wasn't my job to heal them. It's my job to help them heal themselves.
Wonderfully said.
And that's important as a parent. It is important as a woman because they're going to meet somebody and I want them to be a good partner to somebody. And so it was I just set out to do that. And I look back today and I'm like, I did that. I did that. I know that. And I'll get to that point. But healing wounds is so important because if you don't do that, you'll bleed on everybody else.
Just pause over there on that. So, guys, Zoe just mentioned she walked away from an abusive relationship around 17 to 18 years before.
Hmm. Hmm.
And one of the elements, if for again, this was a conversation which we had last year. She walked away from the relationship with, just get this, with just $30 to her name. Not
Hmm.
a little more than $30. That's
Hmm.
all. That's all. But what she had was her grit and a fact that she had to start her life on her own. She had
With
to
two
be
young kids.
with two young kids, name it, everything. Get a job, get a house, I mean, there was support, but end of the day, when you come back to your own home or own space, it's your life that you have to get it together. And she got it. And at this point of time, she has worked through those particular steps. With last few years, yes, she has been working around, but also she has been in a mind or that emotional state wherein she had to literally look through her back at her shoulders if there was somebody who's going to get abusive with her.
Mhm.
And that's how she has broken those bounds. A question which comes up over here, Zoe, is that when you look at your own chapters of life, if there are around 3 or 5 elements that strikes to people, what they need to do, whether it's an abusive relationship or just growing out of the challenges, what could those be from your own perception?
The most important thing is the ability to look at yourself and love yourself more and respect yourself more to make the move. It doesn't matter about anything else, a job, a house, money. It is about who you are and your relationship with yourself.
Mm-hmm,
That is the number one thing. And once you say, I deserve better,
mm-hmm,
and it takes, and we learn this in martial arts, it takes 10 seconds of courage. And once you step into that uncertainty, that is where the abundance comes in. And that is where the learning and the growth occurs. It's doing the thing that you're afraid to do, it's stepping into the unknown. It is like, what am I going to do? Well, we don't know what's going to happen from one minute to the next, regardless of the situation. But it's about loving and respecting yourself more. And especially if you're a parent and you have, especially young children, it's especially important because they see everything.
mm-hmm.
They hear everything. They absorb everything. And so you just have to make that decision and make the move.
That can be quite challenging, especially if you are the person getting abused, because it's usually a mindset says that you are at fault, I'm not enough, maybe something is wrong with our own self, because we as humans a lot of times we are our worst of our critics and worst of our elements, but we just don't look further than that. Maybe I
Mhm,
deserve it because I'm not good, and this person is beating me up, if I'm saying that word,
mhm.
beating me up, or uh, being whatever the other elements are. Maybe they're trying to make me better. So what would be 1 or 2 statements that comes to your mind, allowing people to break those shackles?
So I used my late ex husband as a tool to look at myself with.
Hmm.
I used him as my mirror. And I'm a believer that everybody in your life is a reflection of you, and they are in your life to teach you something. They are your reflection to take a look at yourself. When something doesn't resonate, that is the message that you need to look into. Why didn't that? Why is there friction here? Why am I being repelled from this person? What is this person trying to teach me? And so the minute I looked at my late ex-husband, and instead of feeling and fueling that negative energy from him into myself, I said, I need to look at him as an object and use him as the mirror to look at myself with. And how the first thing I did was in that email that sickened me, he was trying to control me.
Hmm.
And my response was trying to control him. So that was the mirror. And I was like, as much as I don't want him to control me, I'm trying to do to him. And as long as I keep fueling that, it's going to go on and on and on. So I had to break that. So once I broke it, it took a long time because of course when somebody is in their state like that, they're going to keep doing and doing and doing. But he was a malignant narcissist. He was a dark triad. And so once you recognize that, it starts to break that pattern, and it's all about breaking patterns. So once I took myself out of that energy and saw him as an object and go and say, that's a behavior,
Hmm.
and looked at him as behaviors and using those behaviors to look at myself, that's when I learned how to do the self improvement work. I learned how to discard what I didn't like about myself. I'm like, oh God, I can't, oh, and just got rid of that. If it didn't resonate within me, it didn't need to be part of my being. Even as a parent, like I parent completely. I like to think completely different than I used
Hmm.
to even a year ago. And my sons taught me how to let go, and the universe has taught me how to let go. But this was all a process to get to that point, and it's crucial.
So, guys, over here, one of the thoughts which come up is that if at all in a relationship or in parenting, you do find a kind of a hiccup, do reach out to Zoe. She may have a thought or two what could help you to the next step. You don't have to go for the end results, but then, as she says, it's always we think about the way rather than just as a destination, and that's where your growth comes from. So, when we look at the last 20 to 30 years, 20 to 25 plus years, wherein you have grown, as you've been saying, currently, what are the differences that you see from Zoe of the past and Zoe of now?
Oh, I was wound up, and I was very driven, and I still am, but just in a way where I was really trying to be pull too many strings and be the puppeteer to try and control so much. And it was because it was a trauma response. I was
Mm-hmm.
in a situation where I was just in survival mode,
Mm-hmm.
and I hit this time frame a year ago, and I was at the farm where I ride horses at, and I turned to the owner of the farm, and he's got this beautiful herd. And I said, I want to learn more about equine assisted therapy. And his wife is a psychotherapist. And he's like, talk to my wife. Okay. And literally 2 days later, Alan reached out to me. So once I learned to let go of that control, I'm I personally manifest so much faster, because if I and I know it takes action. And now I'm to a point in my evolution that I can think of something and speak it, and it can come into existence. It's not me working so hard at it. I'm not in a state of survival. I needed to be who I was back then and do what I needed to do to get to this point. And now that I'm through that, things are more fluid and things are more sensitive also. So that's something I need to be aware of in my own presence and energy.
Fantastic. So, guys, one of the elements that there's a takeaway over here is that you got to take the step. And that's when the universe opens up. Irrespective, okay, you may want to manifest a lot of things, but till you take the first step, the doors will not really open. She saw within her own self for her to grow was to learn more about the therapy. And lo behold, who was there? The wife of the owner of the farm. In the same way, think about in case you want to do something, take the first step. As Zoe says, take the action. And then you see the other life opening up in the ways that you have not imagined. Zoe, just being mindful of the time, is there a last parting thought that you would like to tell the listeners?
I still go back to what I originally said to you. A dream is just a noun until you take action and turn it into a verb. And the universe conspires and gives you everything that you need. It might not be what you want, but it's what you need to get to the next part, to get to the next step and the step after that. And every roadblock that appears to be a roadblock is a gift. It's the universe's way of saying, not this, not now, or this isn't for you, there's something else for you. And once you, instead of working against it and going, why me, why this, why that, I can never win, like I can't win for anything, once you buy into that, that's what it's going to continue to be for you. But once you look at it objectively and say, what am I supposed to learn here? Why is this detour here? What is next? What you have the power to choose and to manifest and to navigate that. And instead of seeing it as blockings or blockages, they're passageways more than anything else. You just have to open that door and step in and through.
Fantastic. Zoe, I couldn't ask for more. That was a beautiful lesson. So, guys, if you have reached until here, think about what Zoe mentioned. There's always chances in life, but the choice that you make, that's when the chances become more bigger and better for your own self. So, Zoe, thank you again for your space and time. Again, a wonderful conversation with you, and you take care, Zoe.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And let me know if there's anything that I can do.
Please, guys, please go ahead and connect with her.
Absolutely.